The love you're begging for is the poison that will kill you. Every woman who knows you completely holds the map to your destruction. And by the time you realize it, the wolf in you is already dead. Let me tell you a dangerous secret, a heresy so profound it is spoken only in the most cynical corners of history, in the quiet desperation of deposed kings. The most dangerous position for a man is not to be hated, nor to be ignored, but to be truly, deeply, and unconditionally loved. You have been taught the opposite. You have been raised on a diet of poems and songs that extol love as the ultimate prize, the final safe harbor. It is a lie, a beautiful, comforting, and utterly lethal lie. To be loved is to be placed in a gilded cage, to be fed the sweet poison of complacency until your claws have dulled and your wings have atrophied. It is the slow, gentle death of your own power. Niccolò Machiavelli, that unsentimental surgeon of the human soul, understood this with a clarity that still chills us 5 centuries later. In his infamous little book, The Prince, he dissects the mechanics of power, and he asks the question that every man must eventually face. Is it better to be loved or to be feared? His answer is a bucket of ice water to the face of every romantic. While one would wish to be both, he states, because it is difficult to unite them in one person, it is much safer to be feared than loved. Why? Because, he explains, love is held by a link of obligation which, owing to the baseness of men, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage. Fear, however, is maintained by a dread of punishment which never fails. Let us translate this from the cold marble of his Florence to the warm, velvet-draped bedroom of modern romance. Her love for you is a bond of feeling, a fickle and ephemeral thing subject to her moods, her insecurities, her changing desires. It makes you comfortable. It makes you soft. You relax your guard. You reveal your weaknesses, believing you are building intimacy. What you are actually doing is handing her a detailed map of your psychological vulnerabilities. You are disarming yourself in the presence of your most intimate and powerful potential adversary. Fear, or let us call it by its modern name, a profound and unshakable respect mixed with a healthy dread of losing you, is a far more stable foundation. It is not based on her fleeting feelings, but on her rational assessment of your value, a value that is independent of her, a value she understands she cannot easily replace. There is a grim fable from the old Prussian forests about a magnificent wolf, the undisputed king of his territory. He was feared by every creature, and he was magnificent in his solitude. But he grew lonely. He allowed a gentle doe to approach him. She was not afraid. She loved him. She groomed his harsh fur. She brought him sweet berries. She convinced him the hunt was a cruel and unnecessary thing. She praised his gentleness. She adored his tame nature. He grew fat and content in her affection. One day, a younger, leaner wolf challenged him for his territory. The old king, his instincts dulled by comfort and his muscles softened by inaction, was defeated with ease. As he lay dying, he understood the doe's love was not a gift. It was the most effective poison he had ever consumed. It had killed the wolf in him long before his rival ever arrived. You are that wolf. And the modern world is full of well-meaning does, offering you the sweet berries of unconditional acceptance and emotional safety. It is a trap. The man who is deeply loved becomes predictable. His lover learns the precise cadence of his heart, the shape of his fears, the passwords to his soul. He has no secrets, no hidden reserves of power. He is a known quantity, a conquered territory. And there is nothing less compelling to the deep, amoral, evolutionary instincts of the feminine spirit than a territory that has already been fully mapped and claimed. The strange, fleeting hope in this bleak assessment is to redefine your goal. Stop seeking the cloying comfort of being loved. Start cultivating the stark, terrifying, and ultimately more honest state of being respected. Or, yes, even feared. Not the fear of a brute, but the fear a student has for a master, the fear a courtier has for a king whose mind he cannot fully predict. It is the fear of losing access to your world. This requires you to embrace a certain coldness, a willingness to remain partially unknown, To have a part of your soul, your ambition, your purpose, that is yours alone, a dark forest into which she is never fully invited. It is in this unseeable part of you that your power resides. It is the source of her unending, fearful curiosity. So I ask you, you who have worked so hard to be an open book, a safe harbor, a man who is easy to love, what have you lost in the process? Look down at your own hands. Are they the soft, well-kept hands of a beloved pet? Or are they the calloused, scarred hands of a king who understands that the price of absolute love is absolute powerlessness? To be feared is not to be a monster. It is to be the load-bearing wall in the house of her reality. I've seen it play out in 100 different lives, a recurring tragedy of good intentions. A man wins a woman's love. He is kind, he is attentive, he is everything the songs say he should be, and he becomes disposable, like a court jester. The king loves his jester, he laughs at his jokes, he enjoys his company. But when the kingdom is threatened, when hard decisions must be made, the jester is sent from the room. He is a luxury, a pleasant diversion. The king does not love his spymaster. He may even dislike him, but he needs him. He fears the consequences of his absence. The spymaster is not sent from the room. He is the one who whispers in the king's ear when the doors are locked. You have been taught to be the jester. You must learn to be the spymaster. When Machiavelli speaks of being feared, the modern mind, steeped in a sentimental therapeutic culture, immediately recoils. It conjures images of tyranny, of abuse, of brutish intimidation. This is a deliberate and convenient misunderstanding. The fear a wise prince cultivates is not the fear of his fists, but the fear of his absence. It is the terrifying, dawning realization in her mind that without you, her world would be demonstrably colder, harder, and more chaotic. It is the fear of losing the one indispensable pillar that holds up the roof of her reality. Love is a preference. Fear, in this context, is a dependency based on profound respect. She prefers the jester. She depends on the spymaster. And when the storm comes, preference is a luxury that is quickly discarded. Consider the old maritime city-states, like Venice or Genoa. They told tales of two lighthouses guarding a treacherous strait. The southern lighthouse was run by a kind old man named Lorenzo. He kept his lamp bright and warm, and in the mornings, he would wave to the passing ships. The sailors all loved him. The northern lighthouse was kept by a silent, grim man named Cassian. His light was cold, stark, and ruthlessly efficient, cutting through the thickest fog. No one loved Cassian. They found him unsettling. One year, a great hurricane smashed the coast. Lorenzo's lighthouse, built on soft earth, was washed away. The sailors mourned his passing, lit candles in the church for him, and then learned to navigate by the stars. The next year, the same storm came and extinguished Cassian's light. Panic seized the port. Without his cold, unerring beam, ships were wrecked upon the hidden rocks. Commerce ground to a halt. The city descended into chaos. The sailors then understood a terrible truth. They had loved Lorenzo, but they had feared the rocks that Cassian's light held at bay. Lorenzo was a comfort. Cassian was a necessity. Your goal is not to be the warm light that is missed, but the cold light whose absence causes a shipwreck. This indispensability is not won through affection. It is forged in the lonely fires of your own competence. It is your mission, your purpose, your unshakable frame. It is your ability to solve problems, to generate resources, to see the world with a clarity she cannot replicate. It is the fortress of your mind, the one place she cannot gain entry, but whose stability she relies upon. You become the fixed point in her turning world. To lose you would not be a heartbreak. It would be a strategic catastrophe. Nietzsche touched upon this with his pathos of distance. The noble soul, the master, does not seek to merge with others. He maintains a distance. His power comes from this separation, from the fact that he is not common, not easily understood, not fully possessed. This distance creates a kind of awe, a respect that is tinged with the fear of the unknown. He is not a warm and friendly tavern. He is a cold, magnificent mountain that she can choose to orient her own map by. She fears losing sight of the mountain, for then she would be truly lost. The quiet, difficult hope here is that the path to this feared, respected state is through radical self-improvement. It requires you to turn your focus away from her and onto yourself. Stop asking, how can I make her love me more? And start asking, how can I become a man whose loss would be an unacceptable price to pay? The answer has nothing to do with buying her flowers and everything to do with building your empire, whether that empire is a business, a body of knowledge, or a work of art. So, I ask you this riddle. If you were to vanish from her life tomorrow, would she feel the pleasant sadness of a jester who has told his last joke? Or would she feel the cold, gut-wrenching terror of a queen who has just heard that her spymaster, the only man who knew all the secrets, has defected to the enemy? The sun does not worry if the planets love it. It simply burns, and in burning, it commands their orbits. Imagine a planet clothed in the beautiful, swirling blues and whites of its own atmosphere. It is in love with its sun. It spins and dances. It presents its most beautiful face. It worries constantly about the sun's attention. It fears the moments when the sun turns its gaze to other parts of the solar system. The planet's entire existence is a performance for an audience of one. Now, consider the sun. The sun does not notice. The sun is not engaged in a relationship with the planet. The sun is engaged in the catastrophic, ecstatic, and ceaseless business of its own nuclear fusion. It simply burns. And in the act of burning, in its magnificent, self-obsessed, and utterly indifferent expression of its own nature, it generates the gravity that bends the planet to its will. The planet's orbit is not a tribute to the sun's kindness. It is an involuntary consequence of the sun's power. You have been trying to be the planet. Your life has been a frantic dance for her approval. The Machiavellian secret to generating the profound fear and respect we have spoken of is to stop being the planet and to start the terrifying, glorious work of becoming a star. This is the state of divine indifference. It is not a feeling you fake, it is a state of being you earn. It is the natural condition of a man who has found a purpose so all-consuming, a mission so profound, that the dramas of romantic validation become a distant secondary concern. He is not playing hard to get. He is hard to get because his most valuable resource, his focus, is invested elsewhere. He is invested in the catastrophic, ecstatic business of his own becoming. Machiavelli called this quality virtù. It is a difficult word to translate. It means more than virtue. It means skill, excellence, audacity, courage, strength of character. It is the sum of a man's power to impose his will upon the world, to shape his own destiny rather than be shaped by Fortuna, the fickle goddess of luck and circumstance. A woman's love, her moods, her whims, that is the very definition of Fortuna. A man of virtù does not concern himself with controlling the weather. He concerns himself with building a ship that is strong enough to withstand any storm. There is a myth told by the hermits who lived in the deserts of ancient Egypt. They spoke of a master sculptor who was tasked by the pharaoh to carve a statue of a god. He was given a perfect block of black marble and shut away in his workshop. Years passed. The sculptor became a ghost. He forgot his family, his friends, his own name. His entire universe was the stone. He was not carving a statue. He was in a brutal, intimate war with the marble, trying to release the god he knew was trapped inside. One day, the most beautiful woman in Egypt, a courtesan who had broken the hearts of princes, heard of this strange, obsessed man. Intrigued, she came to his workshop. She wore perfume that could make a man forget his own name. She spoke in a voice like honey. She tried to distract him. The sculptor, his eyes wild with focus, glanced at her for a moment as one might glance at a curious insect and then turned back to his stone, his hammer and chisel a blur of motion. He was not rude. He was not playing a game. He had simply ceased to be aware of her because she was less real, less important than the god emerging from the marble. The story goes that the courtesan, who had never been denied anything in her life, became utterly obsessed. She spent the rest of her days sitting quietly in the corner of his workshop, just to be near the fire of a man so consumed by his own purpose that he had no energy left to worship her. His indifference was not a tactic. It was the proof of his devotion to a higher power, his own work. This is the state you must achieve. You must find your block of marble. It may be a business. It may be an art form. It may be your own body. It may be the pursuit of knowledge. The specific what is less important than the intensity of the how. You must fall in love with the process of your own self-creation so completely that you forget you are supposed to be lonely. You must become so absorbed in your own fire that her presence is a pleasant warmth at your back, but her absence does not cause you to grow cold. The modern world, with its endless distractions and its gospel of work-life balance, is fundamentally hostile to this kind of singular, obsessive focus. It will tell you that you are unbalanced, that you are neglectful. These are the voices of the planets trying to convince the sun to burn a little less brightly for their own comfort. You must learn to ignore them. The hope, the true liberation, is in the work itself. The joy of mastery, the deep satisfaction of building, the quiet pride of self-reliance. These are pleasures so profound they make the fleeting highs of romantic validation feel like a cheap sugar rush. So, let me ask you a question, not as a prince or a philosopher, but as a simple craftsman. Look at the life you are living, the woman you are chasing, the love you are begging for. Now look into the silent workshop of your own soul. What great work have you abandoned? What God lies sleeping in the uncarved stone of your own potential? And when will you finally pick up your hammer and begin? You have been convinced to beat your sword into a plowshare, not for the sake of the harvest, but so that you may be more easily led to the slaughter. Here is a joke so bleak it circles all the way back to being funny. The same society that fears your power will praise you for relinquishing it. The zookeepers will always applaud the lion that learns to purr. You are living in an age of expert tamers. They are the new priests, the new moral authorities. They come to you not with whips and chains, but with soft voices, diagnostic manuals, and the unimpeachable language of health and healing. They have diagnosed your very nature as a pathology. Your ambition is a trauma response. Your stoicism is repressed emotion. Your desire for solitude is avoidant attachment. Your pride is narcissism. Your innate masculine aggression, the very fire that forged empires and stared down saber-toothed tigers, is now a personality disorder in need of management. You are a magnificent beast being convinced you have a disease, and the only cure is your own domestication. This is the great conspiracy of comfort. It is a social and psychological campaign to render the masculine spirit harmless. It is a transvaluation of values so profound that Nietzsche himself would have stood in stunned, admiring horror. The virtues of the strong, pride, ambition, self-reliance, a capacity for righteous fury, a certain noble selfishness, have been systematically relabeled as toxic. And the virtues of the weak, the traits that make a man manageable and dependent, vulnerability, endless emotional processing, a desperate need for consensus, a fear of confrontation, have been elevated to the status of enlightenment. Machiavelli would recognize this tactic instantly. A wise prince, when conquering a new city, does not simply kill the old warriors. That is crude and creates martyrs. A truly clever prince persuades the warriors that their swords are a burden, that their armor is a sign of fear, and that true strength lies in their willingness to be disarmed. He convinces the wolves that their highest calling is to become sheepdogs, protecting a flock that is not their own, for a shepherd who secretly despises their nature. There is a legend from the last days of the Byzantine Empire about a master strategist named Phocas. The city was protected by a small elite unit of Varangian guards, fearsome Nordic warriors who were loyal but terrifyingly wild. Phocas knew he could not control them by force, so he used a more subtle poison. He introduced them to the comforts of the capital. He gave them soft beds and fine wine. He sent philosophers to debate with them about the futility of violence and poets to sing them songs of peace. He arranged for beautiful, sophisticated women to praise their sensitivity and mock their brutish ways. Over a generation, the Varangians changed. They traded their axes for lutes. They became connoisseurs of wine and rhetoric. They were beloved by the populace. They were civilized. When the Ottoman armies finally came to the walls, the Varangians went out to meet them, ready to have a reasonable discussion. They were annihilated. They had been loved to death. You are being loved to death. The cultural pressure to be soft, to be an ally, to be emotionally available at all times, is the whisper of the peacemaker, convincing you to lay down your arms just before the siege begins. It is a conspiracy of castration, cloaked in the language of compassion. And its goal is not to make you a better man, but to make you a more manageable one. A man who does not build his own kingdom is no threat to the kingdoms of others. A man consumed by his own feelings has no energy left to change the world. The faint, flickering hope in this new dark age is the spirit of rebellion. It is the primal, healthy instinct that rises up in you when you hear this talk, a feeling of revulsion, a sense of being handled, a deep, cellular no. That is the wolf in you, gagged and chained in the cellar of your own psyche, that can still smell the blood of the butcher. That is the part of you that has not yet been tamed. The path to freedom is to start listening to that voice, to start feeding that wolf. It means having the courage to be unhealthy by the standards of a sick culture. It means embracing your stoicism as a shield, not a sickness. It means honoring your ambition as a divine fire, not a distraction. It means seeing your solitude not as an escape, but as the sacred ground where you forge your own soul. It is to look the smiling zookeeper in the eye and, instead of purring for your treat, showing him a flash of your fangs. So, I ask you, with the cold clarity of a fellow prisoner, the advice you are given, the praise you receive for being good and safe, is it designed to make you stronger, or is it designed to make you the kind of man who will never, ever be feared? The man who cannot be broken is the one who has already embraced his own beautiful, terrible ruin. And so, you have come this far. You have seen the poison in the loving cup. You have understood the strategic value of fear. You have embraced the divine indifference of purpose. And you have rejected the sedating gospel of the tamed. The tools of the prince are in your hands. You know how to be feared. You know how to be respected. You know how to command the board. And now, I will tell you the final secret, the one that lies on the other side of Machiavelli himself. The ultimate power is to no longer care if you are loved or feared. The entire project, the entire struggle, was only ever a bridge. A necessary, brutal, and agonizing bridge to get you from the land of the slave to the land of the king. But the purpose of a bridge is to be crossed. Once you have reached the other side, you do not spend your life admiring the bridge. You turn your back on it and begin to explore the new country. This new country is the kingdom of the unconquered self. It is a state of being so grounded in your own reality, so complete in your own purpose, that the emotional weather of others, their love, their hate, their fear, their indifference, is no more consequential to you than the passing of clouds in the sky. You observe it, you note it, and you continue with your work. The man who needs to be feared is still, in a subtle way, a slave. He is dependent on the fear of others for his sense of power. He is still performing, still managing perceptions, still playing the game. The truly free man, the man who has completed the journey, has transcended the game itself. His power is no longer a tool he wields to affect others. It is an intrinsic quality of his being, like the gravity of a star. It exists whether anyone is there to experience it or not. There is a final legend, a quiet one, whispered by the Stoic philosophers in their porticos as the Roman Empire crumbled around them. It is the story of the lighthouse keeper on the edge of the world. He was a man who, in his youth, had been a great political schemer, a master of fear and influence. But he grew weary of the game. He abandoned his life and took up a post on a tiny, storm-battered rock, with the sole duty of keeping a great fire burning to warn ships away. For the first 10 years, he felt pride when sailors cheered his light. For the next 10 years, he felt a grim satisfaction in knowing they feared the rocks his light exposed. But for the final 30 years of his life, he felt nothing at all for the ships. He did not care if they saw his light. He did not care if they were saved. He had become indifferent to the world of men. He kept the light burning not for them, but for the sake of the light itself. It was his nature, his purpose. He and the fire and the rock and the sea had become one thing. He was no longer a man performing a service. He was a law of nature, as necessary and as indifferent as the tide. This is the final liberation. It is to make your own soul your one and only true kingdom, to build its walls so strong and its gardens so beautiful that you have no desire to conquer the lands of others, nor any fear of their invasion. It is the peace that comes from a profound, unshakable self-sufficiency. You will still interact with the world. You may even still love, but it will be a different kind of love. It will not be the needy grasp of the man who seeks completion. It will be the calm, detached benevolence of the sun, offering its warmth without condition and without any need for the planet to love it back. You can give freely because you are no longer afraid of loss. You are no longer afraid of loss because you have already embraced the greatest loss of all, the loss of your need for anything outside of yourself. This is the beautiful terror of freedom. It is a lonely path. There are no crowds here. There is no applause. There is only the quiet, steady, and deeply satisfying work of keeping your own light burning in the vast and silent dark. So, I leave you here, at the gates of your own quiet, unconquerable kingdom. The choice is no longer between being loved and being feared. That was the lesson for the prince. This is the lesson for the philosopher king. The final choice is this. Will you spend your life trying to command the ships on the sea, or will you simply become the lighthouse?